Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to explain what a waiter serve is. Now let's get right to it. So basically, on a waiter serve, the wrist will extend backwards like this, not allowing the racket to drop very low. And it looks something like this. The player will execute the service motion, the wrist will lay back like this, and they will gently push into the ball in this fashion. And if you do indeed have a waiter serve, two factors are going to hold you back when it comes to serve power. And number one, that is the range of motion. So when we have a normal racket drop where the racket drops somewhere to your lower back, or on a high level it's even lower than that, you have a lot more range of motion compared to a serve where the racket drops only to about right here. And also on a waiter serve, you are not pronating into contact. So normally what happens on a serve is the racket will drop and it will come up on edge, and pronation into the contact occurs when the tip of the racket is pointed straight towards the back fence. That's when the forearm starts to pronate. Now on a waiter serve, this is not taking place. So the wrist will lay back in this position and there will be a straightforward push into the serve, and you are going to be lacking a lot of acceleration because of that. And having a waiter serve is one of the worst habits you can develop on the serve. It is very difficult to get rid of it, especially if you've been using this type of serve for a long time. So you have to apply the right corrective techniques to get rid of this problem. Now here are a few things that might not necessarily be connected to a waiter serve. So if you are serving with a forehand grip, so in this case I'm using a semi-western forehand grip, I am not necessarily going to have a waiter serve. So check it out. I'm going to do a serve in this particular grip. You can see here that my racket is still going to drop the normal amount that would take place on a regular serve with a continental grip. So take a look at a serve with a forehand grip and pay attention to the racket drop. So you can see there, my racket dropped sufficiently low enough. I of course couldn't control the ball because the angle of the racket face at contact was wrong. Another technical element of the serve that's often mischaracterized as a waiter serve is the open face racket drop that's used by some of the greatest servers of all time, including Roger Federer and Pete Sampras. So there's two types of racket drops. We can drop the racket on edge like this, or we can have a racket drop that occurs with an open racket face. And again, a waiter serve is identified by a very shallow or non-existent racket drop. And this is not the case on the open face racket drop. The racket will drop sufficiently. Now I happen to have the open racket face style, and you can take a look at my serve and you will see that my racket drops sufficiently, and this type of racket drop doesn't influence the serve negatively in any way. Before I show you some corrective techniques on how you can correct the waiter serve, let's first talk about why the waiter serve is taking place in the first place. So players, when they first start playing tennis, maybe they haven't had any lessons, they feel a lot of safety in hitting the ball like this. They're approaching the ball with the strings. This is a very safe feeling. Now if this doesn't get corrected early on, and if that particular player continues to serve like that, this will go into the muscle memory, so that even when they try to accelerate, when they try to add all the fundamental elements of the serve, unfortunately, this type of racket drop will remain on the serve. And even if this particular player is trying to get rid of the waiter serve by doing all kinds of dry exercises where they're dropping the racket, they might be able to execute all these exercises, but unfortunately when they step up to the line and when the context of the ball is there and they're trying to get the ball in the box, unfortunately the waiter serve will come right back. Now these corrective techniques are for what I call chronic waiter serve. So players that have had a waiter serve for many years and have had a very difficult time in correcting it. So in this case, I want you to isolate the racket drop, and this is what it's going to look like. You're going to drop the racket like this, you're going to toss the ball, and you're going to serve from this position. And you're going to do this every time you practice your serve. You're going to have to isolate this movement so you can get some muscle memory out of it. Let me try a couple more. I'm going to drop the racket as low as I can, toss the ball, and then serve from there. Now let me try one more. I'm going to drop the racket as low as it can go, and I'm going to toss the ball and swing. And this will feel very awkward at first because you're not going to get any momentum, but through a lot of repetition, there's a chance that your body will remember this movement, that when you then go into your regular service motion, you will be able to drop the racket a little bit lower. And the reason why the racket drop is so difficult to correct is that we're not conscious of how low the racket is dropping. That part of the serve is occurring in a very short time span. For example, if I hit a serve, I have absolutely no idea how low my racket is dropping. So for chronic waiter serves players that have had this problem for many years, the only way to correct the waiter serve is to consciously execute parts of the racket drop. Unfortunately, if you just continue serving like that, you are not going to drop the racket any lower. So this corrective technique that I'm going to show you would actually be a mistake on a fundamentally sound serve. So let me explain it this way. So someone that has a sufficiently low racket drop shouldn't slowly go into the racket drop portion of the serve. The serve should accelerate to the max once the racket reaches the trophy phase. However, on chronic waiter serves, I want you to do the exact opposite. I want you to slowly go into the racket drop so that you can feel it. And it looks something like this. You're going to slowly go into the racket drop until you feel the racket going down, and then you're going to accelerate from a lower place. Yes, you will lose some acceleration in comparison to a fundamentally sound serve, but in comparison to a real waiter serve where you're accelerating from here, accelerating from down here will be a bonus. So let me show you the difference. Here's a waiter serve where I'm going to accelerate with absolutely no racket drop. Okay, and here is a serve where I'm going to consciously drop my racket into the racket drop, and I'm going to accelerate from a lower place. You can see I'm going to get more power on the serve. And the disclaimer is that if you have a fundamentally sound serve with a sufficiently low racket drop, do not try this technique because it will make your serve worse. I never want you to consciously execute the racket drop because I want you to accelerate to the max. When we are consciously executing actions of the serve that are supposed to happen in a very small time frame, we can only do so by slowing them down. So these corrective techniques where we're isolating the movements in the racket drop part of the serve are only for chronic waiter serves. And you're going to do these exercises for a couple of months, and then you're actually not going to think about the racket drop at all. And hopefully, through muscle memory, when you execute your serve, you will achieve a lower racket drop. And then hopefully, your waiter serve will be a thing of the past.